Hello and welcome to part 2 of the build with me for the Sarissa MDF Buildings. I hope that you enjoyed part 1. We left just as I was about to start work on the farm animals, so I will not blather on right now and go straight back to the build. I do hope that you enjoy it, and I'll see you again at the end. The farm animals have stuck well to my tongue depressor with the PVA. So what I'm going to do now is get a metal file and just have a go at some of these mould lines. They're pretty good moulds. They don't have all that much to fix on them, to be honest. Just a little bit across the back. There we are. So now that's done, what I'll be doing is I will be undercoating them. So I will set up here and I will invite you back again. That was a very quick clip when I'm ready. For these, I'm going to prime them using my Vallejo surface primer, and I will be going for the grey. This is because I'm probably going to go for some lighter colours, and certainly I am on the ducks. So rather than my black, which I normally would do, I'm going to go grey. So I have given it a good shake before coming on camera. I have my trusty plastic palette. And now, let's get priming. Okay, that'll do for now. I put a little bit too much primer out, which does annoy me. I normally like to be more frugal than that, but that's life. I will now let those to dry, and we'll come back later and do a second primer. This is supposed to be done via an airbrush, but I don't own an airbrush, so I use a brush, a hairy stick. They will look really nice when they're done. I'm very pleased with the sculpts. I'm very pleased that I bought them. Yesterday evening I came back up and did another coat of the primer on the pigs and on the, if that's going to focus, on the little ducks. So now I'm going to put the colour on them. And what I've done is what you should always do. I have looked for some pictures. I have gone onto Google, done a Google image search for pigs, and I've decided I'm going to do nothing particularly fancy. These are going to be pink pigs, which is what I think of when I think of pigs. I was tempted to do some maybe black and white ones, but they're going to be pink. So that's what I'm going to do now, and I will show you when I'm done. The battery is a little low on the camera, so I'm going to pop it on charge while I'm painting, otherwise I would attempt to do another close-up. It's not very long later, and I have done 2 coats on the farm animals. So pink pigs, as I've said, pink pigs, there we are, and little white ducks or geese or whatever they are, water birds. So that you know the paint colours I'm using for the pigs, I'm using Vallejo Model Colour Basic Skin Tone. Vallejo Model Colour Basic Skin Tone for the pigs, and then the geese or ducks or whatever they are being done in Vallejo Model Colour Foundation White. So that's that. I'll let them go off and see what other colours I want to add to them. There is not very much left to do on the farm animals. I have the pigs and the geese. I'm going to put a bright orange beak on each of the geese and on their feet, and then I'm going to do a Reichland flesh shade on the pigs. So let's do the orange first. My very, very busy Red Grass Games wet palette, which I love very much. And this is clear orange Vallejo model colour clear orange. So you've seen me paint before, maybe, if you're a regular. If you are, thank you. If you're not, welcome. And what we're going to do is paint the beaks, and only the beaks, which is going to be a very, very simple task. So simple, I've not even got my goggles out, which I probably should have because this is actually quite fiddly. But there we are. So from all angles, these now have nice orange beaks. And we're going to do a little bit on the feet as well. Very simple. There we are, with that done. Wash that off. Put the lid back on the painting palette. And give the flesh shade. Now, I'm not a big fan of Games Workshop paints or Citadel paints very often, but their shades are superb. I use, obviously, like everyone, I use Null Oil, like there's going to be a shortage tomorrow. But I also love the flesh shade. I have other shades. I have shades from other companies, lots of different ones. I am a hoarder, which is probably apparent by this point. But there's something about the Games Workshop shades that they just get right. This is going to bring out the differences in these sculpts. Are actually quite nice. I'm always paranoid about knocking over my shade bottle. This one. Something I always do is I take it off of the top of the lid before I go into the actual pot. So whenever you do that, take it from this little bit here where it gathers before you put your actual brush deep into the mix. Maybe I'm completely barking, but I've always done that. Even to the extent sometimes I will reshape the bottle to get more up there. I suppose just goes to show that habits are strange, aren't they? There we are, very nice. And now the babies. Missed a bit on this one. Missed his bottom and his back legs. That will never do. So there we are. They really are starting to look very good. I'm really rather pleased with how they're coming out. Just goes to show simple techniques. It works. The wash on the pigs has gone on nicely, but it has left them quite dark. What I'm going to do is I'm going to put a very light wash of light flesh from Vallejo, that's light flesh, over the top of them to tone them down a little bit. That is done, and they are looking a much better shade now. Much less peach. So now when they're gone off, I will put them in place on the model. We're getting close to finishing that one. So now we come to gluing these pigs down. I've put them in place where I want them to be. I'm going to use super glue gel, which should put them in place quite nicely, and then that will be that done for today. I haven't yet decided where I'm going to put the geese, so I'm not going to put them in until I've had a thought. After what feels like a very long wait, I have finally received the roofing tiles from Sarissa so that I can complete the Sarissa MDF building roofs. As it is cold today and I don't have much time for hobbying, I have not bothered to light the fire up in room 13, and I'm going to actually do these downstairs in the kitchen where it's warm. What I have is this roof to complete, for which I'll be using these tiles. And I also have this roof, which I half did, and the other smaller sections from the same building here. And these, I have all these tiles to do. Hopefully, I now have enough. I'll be sure to introduce you to my results as soon as I am completed. I ended up having a very, very productive time with these the first time I tried, and got nearly all of them done that evening, and then a little bit of time has passed and now I've finally finished. So what you can see here is that I've put the tiles on the whole of the roof, and then I've put a ridge line down the top, which is just made out of a thin card, actually from the inside of a wrapping paper tube. And I've finished that one, and I've also done the other roof. So the next thing to do is going to be to paint them with these spray cans. I've got a little bit more to do on the actual assembly of at least one of the Sarissa MDF buildings. And what I'm doing is I'm putting in place the porch supports. So as per usual, a little bit of PVA, not too much, just on the contact points, and then carefully put it into place. And that's that. Then any excess you may have, you can wipe away with your brush, and that will actually make the bond stronger as well by smoothing it around. So with that in place, the next thing to do is to stick the fascia on, which is going to go across here. Now, where would I apply the glue in this case? As you can see, it's going to sit there, and it's going to go along here, and it's going to also have a contact point along here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to apply my glue where I think the contact points are going to be. So down the uprights and along the bottom. There you are. Now, if you're watching very closely, you will have seen that the uprights are not yet secure when I'm doing this. So these bits sticking out from the wall. And the reason I'm doing it with those still damp is because it's allowing me to adjust them to be exactly and completely in place. And it will prevent that swearing that happens when you find that you didn't actually position them correctly, and now this front fascia doesn't fit correctly. So I will now leave that to go off. That is enough, and we'll go and pick something else up. It's really nice to see this progressing. So the next step is going to be doing the porch roof. What I'm doing is I will assemble this section here, which has 4 triangular shapes, and then when I'm ready, when this is dried, I will then stick the cardboard on top. This is a pretty standard Sarissa method and works very well. This has PVA on it at the moment. When that is dried enough, maybe in a couple of minutes, I will invite you back and we will put the roof on. This sub-assembly is now dry enough for me to hold upside down, as you can see. So that means it is ready for me to glue onto the roof. For this, I do like to have it upside down. It makes it a little bit more stable. What I will do is I will apply my PVA, not paint at all, is it? My PVA to the sub-assembly here. So I can be as accurate as possible and get the PVA exactly where I need it. With that done, I will now turn it upside down and press it into place. My hand is probably in the way, I do apologise. . There we are. And then, within easy reach, I have, as I reach, clamps. You can never have too many clamps. That should probably be Beard Clippers' official motto, because I strongly believe it. They're really useful. They're useful because they save you from making silly mistakes, like this not quite lining up, or it slipping when you're moving it and you're not noticing, and then suddenly your model falls apart. It's a good idea to have lots of clamps. And what I will do is simply clamp it in place. Not very hard. As you can see, they're slipping a bit, but they don't need to be massively tightly done. It's just to hold it in place. So I'll get that done, and I'll be back when this is dry and I'm painting it. I've made some good progress on these Sarissa MDF buildings. I've worked very hard on the roofs and have finished tiling and spray painting them. There is some weathering to do, but for now I'm quite happy with how they look. The roofs here are not good, and so is the pig pen with the couple of little ducks. What I have yet to do, I have purchased a couple of 28mm riderless horses, which I'm going to need to paint up and put into place. These were just picked up from eBay, just from an eBay search. And my idea is that at least one of them will be used on this and will have its head sticking out. So I'll cut the door in half so it looks like a stable door, which it is, a stable door, and we'll put the head of one of these horses sticking out. I'm not yet decided whether I'm going to have that roof removable or not. Part of me is thinking I won't, but yeah, it's something to think about as I go forwards. The thing that I'm going to do immediately now, however, is work on the wood store at the back. Now I'm going to put, the roof again is going to be made up with the coffee stirrers, but I'm going to make use of this stick which I've picked up from outside. I'm going to cut that up and I'm going to put that in as wood that's in storage in the wood store, very much like we have here at home. So that's my task for now. I'll get cracking on that and we'll show you what it looks like when it is done. So that is done, and we're on shaky cam, so this is not going to be a long segment, but you can see that inside there we have a whole pile of wood that is now drying with PVA on it, and it looks very good. I'm very pleased. So I'm going to leave that now. I've got a few other things to do downstairs in the warm because it's cold up here tonight, so that's going to be me done for the evening, I think. But it's been a good evening, so that's not a bad way to sign off. As I get ever closer to completing these builds, there are a few small tasks that I need to get stuck into. On this one, I'm going to paint these areas here and just inside here with white paint to match the plastering that I've done. And the reason I'm doing that is so that it is possible for me to remove these roofs should I wish to. So I have some normal acrylic hobby paint, not even Vallejo, just something from a supermarket. And I'm going to paint on that, and I think it'll probably take 1 or 2 coats. So I'm going to get started on that, and I will show you what it looks like when it is done. There you are, that didn't take very long to paint these areas white. And now, while that's drying, I'm going to put the coffee stirrers on the roof of the woodshed. And there we have it. I have used the chop it to trim down some coffee stirrers, and they are now PVA'd on, and I will let that to dry, and we'll come back to that a bit later on, maybe tomorrow. Next I'm going to put some colour on the walls for this Sarissa building, and Angela came up with the idea of painting it roughly the same colour as the old school where I live, and I found this paint which looks like it will be quite close. It's not exact, but it should be close enough. It's quite a rich dark yellow, and that will hopefully go very nicely with the colour of the roofs that I've gone for, and will really glow. So I'm going to put that on the wood now, and I will show you what it looks like when I have done. I've done 2 coats of this yellow, and I've realised that this model I'd actually not treated with my MDF sealant, which is why it's taken 2 coats to get here, and it'll probably take another couple. So there's a indication of just how useful that MDF sealant is. However, I'm very happy with the colour. You can see that I've temporarily placed this roof in, and it really does pop quite nicely. So that's very good. I'm going to let that to dry for a bit, and then I'll come back and do another coat a bit later on. The next step on this building is to do the walls. Now for that I'm going to use a different technique. I've got this sandpaper, which is 120 grit sandpaper, which has a really interesting texture and an interesting finish, and I think that that will look very nice just glued over the walls. So I'm going to give that a go. I'm going to do that on the outside. I haven't decided if I'll do it on the inside as well, but I might do. So I will get myself set up, and I may well invite you along to at least the first part of this so you can see how I'm doing it. So let me get myself set up, get knives and rulers and what have you, get all my tools, and then I will let you join me as I try this new technique. I did start filming a watch me while I do this, and then I stopped because it wasn't going very well. But what I've done is I've practiced a bit, and I've done the back wall here with my sandpaper, and I've also done that section there with the sandpaper. And now I'm tired and I'm going to call it a night. It's about 10 p.m. and we have a busy day tomorrow. I will try to get a how I do this in the vlog this week, but it's highly unlikely and you may have to wait till next week to see that, and I apologise in advance. So we'll see how tomorrow morning goes and if I can get a little time in the morning just to shoot a short segment. So you will know when you watch this very shortly whether I achieved that or not. But until then, I'm pretty happy with the effect it's giving, and that is all that matters to me. And I will show you how to do it either in this vlog or in the next. It's relatively early Sunday morning. I've been up since just after 4 with Rosie, and now I'm going to show you how I was doing the technique with the sandpaper. I'm feeling a lot rested, funnily enough, even despite the early start. So I will get myself pointed down, and this time I will show you how I'm going about doing this technique. The tools I'm using are my safety cutting ruler and another ruler with slightly more detailed gradations on it, an X-Acto blade and a pencil, and that's it. I have 120 grit sandpaper, which has the interesting coloration on it, which I like quite a lot. And I have 2 options for securing it. I have 3M craft mount or PVA glue. Now the craft mount works best in terms of speed because, well, it just does, and the PVA works best in the sense of not gassing yourself when you're using it, but you will need to clamp it and secure it in place. So there's a kind of little bit of a payoff there, which one you want to do. I'm going to be working on this shape here on the back, which actually is going to be repeated 3 times. So what I'm going to do is create a blank, which I will do using paper, I think, and then transfer that blank onto my sandpaper and then finally glue that in place. So first of all, I will mark out that template. Now, one thing that I do have to be aware of is that I was initially going to plaster this, and so I put these little strips of wood. These are now in the way, so I'm having to take them off, and the way I'm doing that is with the X-Acto blade. I'm very carefully, it doesn't matter so much if you damage the building underneath, but very carefully running the knife down just to separate it, and they then come off. They were glued on with PVA, but obviously that means that they are quite well stuck on, but they're also very thin, so you can kind of carve them off, as you see. So with that now a relatively clean edge, what I will do is get just some normal copier paper, put that down on my side, and do some tracing. It's just like being at school. Actually accidentally appear to have picked up more than one sheet of paper, so that wouldn't help. So there we are, I am an artist, as you can see. Now what I will be doing here is transferring the length to that little upward notch that I've done onto the bottom. So we will measure and we will find that that is very nicely exactly 11.5 centimetres, 115 millimetres. So we will go to the bottom and transfer that. There we are. And then there is our little template. Now, using the X-Acto blade, as I don't like scissors, and my safety ruler, let's move this a little bit more round. There we are. X-Acto blade and my safety ruler. Now, using my X-Acto blade and my safety ruler, because I don't like scissors, I will very simply cut this template out. Now I'm going just on the inside of the lines, because I'm going to be drawing around this, so I don't want it to be oversized. And there we have it. So let's have a check of that against the building. Always double check your work. That's going to work very well. And then if I do it the other way around, it's also going to work for that end as well. Isn't that great? So now that I've got my template, let's put the knife away briefly. What I will do is I will get the sandpaper. You know what? I wouldn't normally do this, but what I'm going to do is try and show you this sunset, which is occurring out of the window, filthy as it is right now. Look at that. I know the window is dirty, but wow, I am very lucky where I live. Beautiful. Right, back to the matter at hand. Sorry for that little diversion then. Beautiful. So, back to this. So I've got my template, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to transfer that over onto the sandpaper on the back. So first of all, we will make sure to get it nicely square and in place. And then, with the pencil again, we will mark around it. It's not square, nor is it in place. There we are, that's better. This is where potentially using a heavier paper might have been useful, but this is going to be okay. There we are. So that's the first one, and we do need to do the second one rotated the other way, don't forget that. So once again, I will offer that up to the corner, because that's going to be the easiest way to get two straight edges and a 90 degree. That sun is coming through lovely now. Beautiful. There we are. So now I have the two shapes. What I'll do is, you've guessed it, X-Acto blade, safety ruler, and start slicing. With these cut out, it's now simply a case of gluing them in place. Now I'm going to use the 3M craft mount, and for that I'm going to pause the video, go and spray that outside because it is a bit nasty, and then I will show you when these are glued in place, but simply you put a very thin overspray over the areas you want to glue it on, press it in place, and then it's done. It's a very, very good way to do it. PVA is an option if you don't have this, but as I said, you will need to use your clamps and it will take a bit longer to dry, and I want to get this done so I can go back downstairs and get this published. So I will get that done and I will be back when that is completed. So that is done, and as you can see, it's looking really rather nice. Do bear in mind, if you are using the craft mount, that you will need to give it a little tap every now and then. Just pay attention if it's rising or bending a little bit. It does go off quite quickly. It's much quicker than the PVA, but you still need to pay some attention. So what I will now do is fill in that gap in the middle, and then that wall is done. It's a very quick technique. I think it gives a great finish, and I'm very pleased with how that's looking now. Well, there we are at the end of the second video in this series. It's quite a long build, it has taken me time, but I'm enjoying this editing because it's good fun to look back and see what I did, and I hope that you're finding it interesting, particularly that last tip that I was just doing, which is the sandpaper to line your walls and cover your walls of your MDF buildings. It's a nice technique and it works really well, and it's quite quick and easy to do. So I'm going to not ramble now. We'll be back again very soon with part 3 of this series. I'm just going to edit and release them as soon as I can, and hopefully there'll only be maybe another 1 or 2 episodes, I suppose you want to call them, to come. So it's just left to say, if you have any comments, please leave them in the comments below. I'll be very happy to read them and reply to them. And if you're not yet subscribed, please do so, and don't forget to ding the bell, because then you will be informed whenever one of my videos goes live. And last but by very much not least, thank you so much for watching Beard Clipper.